My time in Iceland began in the capital city of Reykjavik, where it was cold and rainy and perfect. So after spending the day exploring the city, checking out what it had to offer, it was time to check into our hotel, which was like the biggest building in the city. And that night I was meeting up with a small group of people, and together we were going to spend the next week traveling around the southern half of the country. I originally booked this trip like a year ago, specifically to do photo and video. And so a challenge that I set up for myself was to try and capture some landscape photos in Iceland that at least in some way actually conveyed like the experience and the actual feel of the environment, because I don't really know how to do that. I know how to take photos, but I don't know how to take this whole thing and capture it in an image that would really convey what it feels like. Over the next few days as we travel throughout the country to see what I can do and if I can make that goal of capturing at least somewhat of what it's like to be here, because it really is like nowhere else in the entire world. Like, I didn't have to even go anywhere to find this location. It's just like I just walked outside. What? So we left the city to go explore the country, which is a land filled with waterfalls and geysers and an infinite amount of natural beauty that is really hard to describe. From there, it was horses and dogs and a greenhouse filled with tomatoes and carbs and tomato soup for the carbs, before heading back out into the world to find some new locations with very specific rules about filming and a lot more waterfalls. I thought this was pretty much the end of the first day, but in a world where it never gets dark and everything is beautiful, that wasn't quite the case. So right now we're out in the middle of rural countryside. It's almost 10 o'clock at night, but it doesn't get dark this time of year, and I'm super tired and want to go to bed, but I can't. This is the first time that the sun has been out, and it looks like a storybook. It's so like perfect. There's a joke that goes, if you don't like the weather in Iceland, just wait 5 minutes, because then it will be something completely different, which I have found over the last few days to be entirely true. So I'm going to set up this camera and just let it record for 5 minutes, and then I'll speed up the footage just so you can see the changes that can take place in just 5 minutes. Notice the lighting and the clouds, and the whole mood can totally change like instantly. It's crazy. The next day, bright and early, we were back out on the road to explore more of the country, stopping and looking for interesting and beautiful and just cool stuff along the way, which of course included plenty of waterfalls and the backside of water. Coming from the California desert, I had never been anywhere where there was just so much water. We then found this really cool small historical village where you could go into houses and buildings to see how people in Iceland lived many, many years and many, many decades ago. And as someone who was looking for photos, it provided the perfect opportunity to take some really atmospheric and moody pictures. We continued to head south and east, finding more waterfalls, but each one was really incredibly beautiful in its own way, even if they had literally 500 steps to climb to get to the top. The views were well worth the effort. Tonight we're staying at this really spectacular hotel. It's super bizarre. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's ultra modern and really nice, and the views are incredible, and there's some super interesting weather. So I think I might be able to get some really cool and unique photos just right around here. If you look outside, this is the view outside the hotel room window. There is absolutely nothing. It is awesome. And the front of the hotel has these really cool mountains that are all like misty and foggy and stuff, and there's snow on them, so that's where I'm gonna start. At this point, it was honestly almost exhausting to try to continue to capture all of the beauty of this country that was constantly bombarding us. I was still struggling to find some good photo opportunities, but today we were headed towards Iceland's famous black sand beaches, and these are so spectacularly otherworldly that it seemed almost impossible not to be able to find at least a few really outstanding images. Whatever the one photo is that I'm looking for, I haven't found it yet. I've gotten some, I think some are okay, but I haven't had I just haven't gotten the one that I'm looking for, and I don't know exactly what it is. So we've got a few days left. I hope I find that. I'd love to find more than one. There's these things called sneaker waves, which sneak up on you. So I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen while I'm doing this. But this black sand is completely crazy. Look at the trail behind me. It's pretty cool.
When you choose to take the road, brother, please let the wind into your soul and start to breathe. Together we'll be free. It's not just you and me.
When you choose to take the road, sister, sing. Imagine all the words becoming real.
And the black sand beaches were some of my favorite places we had seen so far, but I had no idea the surprise that I was in for at our next location. So many opportunities for videos and photos. The light is completely perfect. These clouds over here keep the sun keeps shining through them in different ways and giving different colors off the snow and the ice and the water. I haven't looked at all my photos I've taken so far, but I think, especially with the slower shutter speeds, I've got some pretty decent ones. Really hopeful. For the kinds of photos I had in mind, I was using a lot of neutral density filters to try and reduce the amount of light coming into the camera, which meant I could use longer shutter speeds, 3, 4, 5, even more seconds, which really helped just sharpen everything up, smooth out the water, and bring in a lot of the richness and the detail, which is exactly what my goal was as I set out to take these photos. All of my photos were taken with the Canon 6D Mark II, and I only brought 3 lenses with me on this trip: the Canon 24-105 f4, the Canon 16-35 f4, and the Canon 35mm f2. For landscapes, it really just called for wide shots, and so the 16-35 was my main lens, usually with an f8 to even f11 aperture, depending on how long my exposure was going to be. And I loved having the 24-105 to zoom in and get a little more shallow depth of field when I wanted it. Just a quick fun fact, something else that's neat about this trip: this is my first trip to Europe, and it's obviously then the furthest that I've ever been away from home, but we keep moving east, so literally every step I'm taking is the furthest I've ever been away from home, which is kind of a cool feeling. I am by no means a professional landscape photographer. That might be a little obvious after watching this. There are people who dedicate their entire lives and careers to developing their landscape photography skills, and I'm just kind of doing it for fun, just to see what happens. But one thing I really learned, which I think is incredibly important, is that a lot of times when you film and take photos of a lot of things, and you always have your camera with you, you can sometimes be criticized by other people for being distracted or missing the moment. And I think that photography, and maybe specifically landscape photography, if you're really doing it right, you are ultra in the moment. Because in order to take a good image, you have to be completely aware of your surroundings, your environment, the lighting, the feel of everything. You have to really absorb everything before you can be ready to set up your camera, adjust your settings, and take the picture that you want to take. So for me, my camera and photo and video are not only ways to capture and share what I'm experiencing and seeing and thinking and feeling, they're also tools to help me more fully enjoy the experience. And I really can't express through words or photo or video how incredible of a country Iceland is. There's so much to see and so much to experience. It truly is unlike anywhere else on the planet. And if you ever have the chance to go, I 100% recommend that you take that opportunity, because it will be the experience of a lifetime and you will not regret it.